All right, guys, let's talk about the depth models today. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. We looked at the canny model last time. We're going to keep in our same example, and we're going to take a look at the different depth models that are available in ControlNet today. I'm going to try and keep this video as short as I can. There's a couple to go through, though, so bear with me if it does get a little longer. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check out the canny model video, please be sure to check that out. And if you dig this video about depth models, be sure to give it a like and consider subscribing. I'm going to be adding all kinds of tutorials and stuff that I've picked up in Stable Diffusion over the next coming couple weeks or whatever, so look forward to that. All right, let's get into the depth models. So just kind of real quickly here to get everything set up, make sure you select your model checkpoint, get your prompt in. We're going to be converting this in the same style that we did, or the same way that we did on the canny video. We're just moving her over to the beach, or moving, putting a woman in this pose basically on the beach. So I've got my prompt for that there. Let's go ahead and set our steps. I'm going to set it about 30. I prefer the sampling method DPM++ 2M Keras. I've set my height to 768 to match the height of the input image we're putting into ControlNet. I'm going to go ahead and batch it out to 4 images there. This is usually what I like to do to hunt through and kind of cherry pick images. I've already dragged the photo into ControlNet. Make sure you expand ControlNet with this option here to get this screen, and then we can go ahead and come in and we can drop the photo in, just like that. Then we're going to want to check Enable. Pixel Perfect will allow us to get that annotator resolution just right. It'll give us its best guess, which is usually pretty good. And we'll go ahead and get down here and start selecting our preprocessor. Now there's a couple to pick from here. We have Depth Leres, Depth Leres++, Depth Midas, and Depth Zoe. We'll go ahead and select Leres to start here. Then you're going to want to come into your model folder and select your ControlNet depth model. Here we go. We are set and ready to run. We're going to keep the weight at 1 here. And once you put this in with Leres, you'll notice that we get an option to remove near percentage and an option to remove background percentage. And so basically what that's going to do is going to remove parts of the depth map and just leave it blank. And so that'll allow Stable Diffusion to sort of dream a little bit more in that scenario and not use the guidance of ControlNet in those black areas on what's essentially a depth mask. So we're just going to run it at the default right now, and then we'll play with those sliders. I'm actually going to go ahead and set this just to 1, just so we can have some speedier turnaround with this. Okay, and here we go. Here is the depth map that was created. This is what ControlNet's going to use to sort of guide the image. And then here's the generation we got. So this one is a little bit different, but very much essentially the same style as our initial image, our input image, which is right here. So you can see that these two images are very similar as far as her pose goes. And I actually did a pretty decent job with her hand and stuff here. She's still holding flowers. We've got some palm trees and stuff, so I mean, she's definitely on the beach. A good start there. That's the depth Leres with the default settings. Just to showcase for you guys what it looks like. This might be kind of hard to see. Let's go ahead and allow preview. And I'm just going to kind of breeze through this a little faster since we do have so many so many different preprocessors to get through today. But let's go ahead and we're going to remove the background percentage. We'll say let's take off about like 50%. And let's get a little peek at what that's going to look like. So it might be a little small. I wish there was a way to blow this up without having to run an image generation. But actually, you know what? I can do this. So there, that makes it a little bit bigger for you guys. You can see here with the setting at 50%, it's essentially removed all of the depth map from the background compared to, let's do this. And there you have it. See, there's this little bit of cloudiness here with the default settings. You set that background removal percent to 50%, and it starts removing sort of the further away areas in the depth mask. And that's going to give it an opportunity to really fill in its own details around here, or read your prompt a little bit more or whatever. So let's go ahead and do one quick generation with it at 50% and see what we get. So there you go, using that depth mask, you can see here that that little corner that was still left, it's left that in there. because it's reading that off the depth map. So who knows, maybe this is a tree kind of hanging over her. She's sitting under a tree. One thing you could do is up that percentage a little bit more to remove that. But we have a woman that's in the same pose, pretty much the same pose. It's very similar, but we have a different background. We don't have all those trees and stuff we had before. It switched it to more of an open water ocean view in the background, which is really very neat. So if you have the background you're not particularly interested in, but you kind of like the pose the person's in, or the subject, whatever it is you're trying to capture, the Leres model is really good for that, and you can have a play with these sliders. Obviously remove near percent. I'm not going to show that on this video. I guess we could run a quick just preprocessor. If you liked the background, say the opposite, we switch it to 50. We'll just run a quick preview, and you can see that it's sort of masked her out in white, and it's going to maybe keep the background. So let's run through that. You can see we have very similar palm trees to that very first image generation I showed in this video, but we have a very different woman sitting here. I mean, the pose is sort of similar, but that's just because it fits the mask. But, you know, the arm is in a different place. We have different things going on. So you have to have a play with the sliders and see what you like best with the depth Leres. But you're going to want to use that one to mess around with backgrounds. Let's go ahead and come into depth Leres ++. And we'll just see, again, what a quick look at the preprocessor preview is going to show us here. So here you can have a look at the depth map that was created with the default settings of depth Leres ++. This is essentially just a variation. You can see it's kind of got some striations in it. It's just like an alternate depth map, an alternate version of depth Leres. Let's run a quick image with the default settings and see what that looks like. So here you have it. We have her on the beach. We still get some palm trees with this one. You can see it kind of followed those striations a little bit and adding like maybe some palm stems or long blades of grass, something like that. Still a very similar pose. And the depth Leres ++ is going to work very similar to Leres that I just showed before, and that you can remove the near percent or remove the background percent. So that's the Leres preprocessor models. Let's go ahead and come on into depth Midas. This is a popular one. It works pretty well. Good standard general use case depth model. Let's go ahead and we'll just run one with the Midas model. And here we have our depth map that was generated with the depth Midas model. You can see here it picks up the key elements, the pose that the woman's in, a couple of those blades of grass, and then sort of where the hill is in the background, and then the skyline. You can see all that here, a very general layout of the input image that we put in. And then our generated image follows that layout. Here's our horizon line. It's got the ocean. She's sitting on the beach. We have the tall blades of grass kind of back there in the background. Everything matches up. So depth Midas is a really good one. I like to use this a lot to sort of get things generally in the place where I want them. There's not any settings to mess with this one unless you're trying to change where the starting control step is, the ending control step is, all of that. If you want to know more about those particular settings, I do talk about it a little bit more in my overview ControlNet video that you can find there on my channel. But depth Midas is a real good just general purpose, just throw in a depth map. I like to stack this with Canny or other preprocessors like HED or maybe even OpenPose to really lock in the pose of a character. So depth Midas is definitely a good one because there's not a lot of settings to mess with and play with. If you want to just throw something in there, you can get the ball rolling. Depth Zoe is the next one here. This one was added with ControlNet 1.1 because I don't remember seeing it before. And very similar to depth Midas, it just generates a little bit different of a depth map. In fact, let's go ahead and just run one here to show you guys the differences once again. And here you go. You can see it's a little bit different than the standard depth map. We have a little bit more shading. It's a little bit more detailed and nuanced than the regular depth Midas map. You've got a little bit of shading here, and you've got some, stuff here. It keeps the same grass structure, but it just almost seems like there's a little bit more depth that's added with this, a little bit more detail. So here is our image, and you can see that loosely kind of follows what we were just looking at. Again, very prominent features like where the woman is sitting, these blades of grass that stick up above the horizon, that's staying consistent. Our skyline is like softer, our horizon line, it's still there, it's still present. And then that shading area that we kind of saw here has sort of turned into the sun, and we have some, you know, some almost misty gradient kind of stuff going on up here. So it's definitely picking up that depth map. So that about wraps up the depth models and preprocessors available for ControlNet 1.1 as of right now. I'll go ahead and throw up the comparison here, and you can see the differences there. The biggest thing to remember is that obviously the two depth Leres models are very similar. One is just a little bit, you know, the plus is just a little bit different, does things a little bit differently, added those striations we talked about. Depth Midas is a great general purpose one, and so is Depth Zoe. I actually have been using Depth Zoe almost exclusively here lately because I do like the images that it generates just a touch more than Midas. They're both very similar. So the two Lereses are similar, and then Zoe and Midas are similar. But you'll use those Lereses to change your map. You know, you can remove certain percentages from the front or the back to really settle on a particular depth on the image that you like. But anyways, that was a quick run through of what the different depth maps can do on ControlNet. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Happy diffusing out there.